Welcome to Cheques and Balances. I'm Michael Vincent. This is James Blair. And today's topic, how to buy a house.
Well, last week's topic, we had Matt on here, gave him the cut after one episode, probably fair enough. Today is all about really the implications, or at least what the government's trying to do in terms of the implications, is getting more first home buyers into their own property.
Absolutely.
So the question then becomes, which I'm a big advocate for, is if you don't get taught about money from your parents, schools certainly don't teach you, is how do you know, Mike, whether you're close to buying a house or not?
Exactly. And like James says, what the government's trying to do at the moment is get more people into their first home. Whether it'll work and that's not, that'll remain to be seen. But there's really two things that matter, right? So the first piece when you're looking at buying a house is the deposit. So that's how much money you have saved up to purchase the house. And the second piece is your income. So that's more along the lines of how much are you earning and can you pay that mortgage once you get it and once you purchase the house. So while I cover both pieces in our jobs, in our day-to-day work, I think the first piece we should cover off is probably the deposit, and that's more James.
Yeah, so in the next episode we're going to talk about, it's going to be about the servicing side, can we maintain our lifestyle, but a huge hurdle to overcome as a starting point is the deposit. You know, if you're in Auckland, you might need $80,000, $100,000.
Yep.
Not many people have that under the mattress. It's about going, what do I need to do to get there? So how are you going to save that money is the perfect place to start. And where we like to focus first is around your budget. Now the B word, a little bit of a dirty word, Mike. We don't want to be, I guess, encouraging people to not enjoy themselves, but working towards their goals, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess when you are setting those budgets, it's about sort of taking some time to set it up at the start and then making sure that you're not constantly focusing on it. You want to set it and forget it almost.
But right at the start as well, once you've invested the time and you've got the strategy, you've also got to go, how long is it going to take me to get there and when am I going to get there by? So really keeping yourself accountable. So Mike, I break up a budget or a saving strategy into three kind of key areas.
Yeah.
The first part is making it really easy. You should be able to manage your money about 10 minutes a week. The second part is automated, which kind of links back to easy. Your money hits your account and then it gets divvied up into the appropriate places.
Yep.
And the last bit is sustainable. You want to make sure that you're having some fun along the way. It's just like, every Monday I go chicken, broccoli and rice, work out 2 times a day, my daily 10 backflips. I give up. Yeah. Before the first backflip.
Absolutely, yeah.
So those kind of 3 key parts are how I tell my clients to manage their money. Now you can do spreadsheets. Some people like a spreadsheet. I personally find a spreadsheet very sexy. Nothing wrong with a spreadsheet.
I don't know why you're looking me in the eyes there.
But when it comes to the way I prefer, if you don't have the spreadsheet, is just keeping it automated.
Yeah.
So for example, the money hits your bank account whatever day of the week, and say you've got $1,500 that hits your account.
Yep.
You should divvy your money up into fixed bills, having some fun, ideally a little bit towards an emergency fund, and then your savings, which is what should be going towards the mortgage.
Yep.
And then you work out how much you need to save, what kind of house you want to buy, what sort of deposit you need, and then how many weeks of those regular savings it'll take you to get there.
Yep.
And then if you don't like that number, you save more. It's one or two, right? You either get comfortable with a longer period, or you save more regularly.
Absolutely. And while James is going to keep running through more of the budget side of things, I think it's also important to point out sort of early on is the type of house that you purchase is really going to sort of dictate how much deposit you need. If you purchase an in-situ house, if you just go past it, see it on the side of the road, it's been, I don't know, it's from the 1950s or 60s, 70s, something like that, you're going to need probably around 20% for that. You can actually go higher, but usually the banks require 20%. If you purchase a new build, so off plans, you go to a developer, you only need 10%. It does make it easier to save. It makes the goal more attainable. There are some instances where you only need 5% through government schemes. However, those are, usually pretty tricky to sort of qualify for and afford the house that you want to live in at the same time. So there's plenty of information online about those. I'm not going to go into detail on those. I'm just going to assume that you sort of don't qualify for that and you're sort of looking at either 10 or 20% deposit.
But if we're being honest, 10%, unless you're lucky enough to have the bank of mum and dad or somebody to help you and get to that 20%, 10% is really where you want to play.
Absolutely.
So you should be hopefully in KiwiSaver, regularly contributing, your employer contributing, and that balance be building. And then in addition to your savings, you should get an idea pretty quick of how long it will take you to get to, maybe if you're in Christchurch and you're going to buy a place for $550,000, how you're going to get to that $55,000 deposit. If you're in Auckland and you're going to get to that $900,000 mark, how much it's going to take to get to that $90,000 mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sort of a really key thing to point out there about KiwiSaver or about any sort of superannuation scheme where your employer is contributing as well. So if you work for a large corporate and they also have these sorts of super schemes, is someone is doing some of the work for you, right? So you are contributing and someone else is contributing on top of that. So it's very important, if you do have that option, so definitely look at it and see whether or not that's going to be beneficial.
Yeah, and the last thing I'd say about the budget as well is just make sure, you shouldn't feel like you're missing out. Make sure you're in, like if you enjoy going out for dinner with the friends or a BYO with the girls or whatever it might be, or shopping, that you still do those things, but you just need to be more conscious and prioritize those expenses and maybe give up the ones you don't enjoy as much.
Absolutely.
But Mike, let me ask you a different question. Let's change tact. So let's say we've saved our deposit and we've started looking for our first home.
Yeah, cool.
What are the costs that we should be thinking about that we're going to incur when buying our first home?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's stick to the 10% deposit space, because that is a lot more attainable for people who are saving to purchase as opposed to getting gifted funds or something like that. You're most likely going to need potentially a registered valuation on the property. So that is someone valuing the property before you purchase it. Now this can get pretty expensive if you're going to auction after auction after auction. Quite often people miss out in the auction rooms, and these can be $600, $800, $1,200 a pop, depending on how big the property is, how much it's worth, and these sorts of things. So you need to be mindful that this will be a reoccurring cost if for some lenders, if you are playing in that 10% space and if you're losing out at auction. So that's why before I sort of went to the new build, because you know what you're getting, you're not in an auction room, it's a little bit more controllable and you know what you're paying.
Okay, so let's say that I'm going for a new build, because the other thing with an auction as well is I think you got to probably be prepared to lose 4 or 5 before you win one. So let's say if we're just looking at a new build, so not worrying about the valuation, what other costs do we have to think about? Yeah,
cool. So because you're going to be high LVR lending or low deposit lending with the banks, you're either going to get charged a fee up front, so a type of insurance that the bank will sort of charge you. Some lenders, they'll add that to your interest rate and charge you that over time, so you need to be considerate of that. Once you've actually sort of purchased the property, or just before you're going to purchase the property, you're going to need to start to think about legal fees. So if you want your solicitor to do some sort of preliminary checks on the title, on the sale and purchase agreement and these sorts of things, that's going to cost you a little bit of money. And then to actually perform the transaction, so the conveyancing fee, where your solicitor will exchange the mortgages, the titles for the money, and that's when you actually get the keys in your hand. So that's going to be a bit as well. So you can do it a little bit cheaper, but conservatively you're looking at sort of $1,200 to anywhere between $1,200 and $2,000 for those sorts of fees.
Yeah, great. So if we're adding together building reports, solicitors' fees, moving costs, if you're going from a flat to owning your own home, you're probably going to need some furniture. Sleeping on the floor is probably not going to be too comfortable. So what do you reckon, excluding the furniture, moving costs, all that, $5,000, somewhere between 5 and 7?
Yeah, exactly. But a lot of the banks at the moment will give you cash back, even though you're above 80% lending. So you can sort of expect maybe $2,000 back from the bank. So that'll take care of maybe the legal fees. So yeah, maybe sort of around the 3,000 mark, 3,500, 4,000 maybe if you're pushing it, after that cash back has been paid as well.
Great. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. We're actually going to have a part 2 of this episode as well, where we talk about the serviceability. Can you maintain your lifestyle and have a home? And then some good general tips as well. So we look forward to seeing you then.
Cheers.